Hi, Allie. Do you know who among your group is gonna share the PowerPoint with us today? I can just make all three of you co-hosts. I cannot hear you if you're talking. You can type if you need to. I guess you're gonna have to talk though for the presentation.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. My phone was on silent and I was trying to
Oh
figure
no.
out what.
Oh, okay, good. I can hear you. Do you know who is among your group is gonna share the PowerPoint today?
I was hoping it wasn't gonna maybe, but I'm assuming it probably is.
Okay. Waiting for Anna.
Um, I
Oh,
got okay, so yeah, I assume I'm gonna be the one that does it. How do I get okay.
I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share. Are you on your phone or your computer? Because I don't know how to do it from a phone. Oh wow, that's cool.
Sorry, just trying to figure out how to mute myself.
Mm,
Um, is my video on?
yeah, your video is on.
And there's the presentation.
Yes. It looks like a phone though, is the
Here.
thing.
Does this work?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that worked. Yes, that looks perfect now.
Okay. So
Okay, it looks good. I'm gonna talk about a few things first. So if you can unshare and then you can share, I'll tell you when you can share and whatnot. So you're gonna have to do it again. Sorry.
no, you're fine.
I just wanted to check it now. Okay, here's Owen. Owen. Okay, and I'll just admit everyone. You should be good now. Okay. Oh, Owen, is it okay if Allie shares the PowerPoint, or do you want to share the PowerPoint, or whoever?
It's totally fine if Ellie does it.
Okay, because that's what we just figured out. I'm going to make you a co-host anyways today. Hello, everyone. Sorry, we're getting started a little bit late, but that's okay. Oh, yes. And Anna's here too. Okay, good. All right, so can everyone hear me? Good evening. Thank you. Go to my PowerPoint here. Set this up. Good. All right. Oh, I need to get rid of the waiting room. There, everyone should be in now. I think we have everyone here. Okay. So welcome everyone. We are in week 2, and I'm going to hurry along here. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to just go over any question. I'm going to talk about a few things first and about the recent assignments. And then we will listen to the in the news presentation. Then we'll review the Kim sisters that we didn't get to talk about last week. And then we'll get into today's topic, and I'll end with the after class assignments. So first I want to announce, if you are interested, I will be presenting at a symposium on campus on Saturday. The art history department has a graduate student symposium every few years. And there's graduate students from all different schools that are coming. I know actually quite a few of you are art history students. So if you are an art history student, I do suggest coming to it and seeing what are some of the things like that you would do as a graduate student. It's completely optional. I'm just telling everyone that it's here, and I'm not offering any extra credit for coming or anything like that, but I wanted everyone to know that it's going on. My presentation is at an 11 to like noon slot on Saturday at the Birds Union Forum D. So if you just want to come listen, actually what I'm talking about is relevant to what we talk about today a little bit. So you might be interested because I'll be talking about Minju. Okay, so the exit quiz, if this was really tough for everyone, I'm really sorry. I fixed the fill in the blank answers as I went along. So whatever your final score was, I announced this on Monday, but I just want to iterate, whatever your final score was after you first submitted it, check again. It should be different now unless there wasn't anything, unless you just got it wrong. But for many of you, it's different. So make sure you check it. And I think there was just some confusion with the way that some of the questions were worded, like question 10, it said talent shows instead of talent competitions. We didn't really talk about shows. We talked about, right, because that's like on TV, but we did talk about competitions. My advice is, everyone, I noticed a lot of people did it within 10 minutes, and I think that might have been your downfall. Make sure, I would say you use between 10 and 20 minutes. You have a maximum of 60 minutes to use, so take your time. You have plenty of time. Read the question a few times and get the nuance of it. So like question 9 about the Kim sisters, a lot of you got it wrong, I think, just because, or it was about Korean music being popular among foreign audiences. A lot of you got it wrong, I think, because you didn't read the before. You didn't catch on to the before word that was in there. Before the Kim sisters, was it popular? No, it wasn't. It was the Kim sisters who made it popular, right? And these are also, maybe I should have emphasized this last week, but these are open books. So you can look at the readings, review the readings, the videos, the plenary as you need to. I can't be in your house with you while you're doing this, so I'm not going to sit here and I can't tell you not to use your sources. And then the big thing is go back over all the questions and check your answers before you submit it. That goes for everything that you do. You should always review before you submit. But I'm sure some of you would have gotten the answer correct if you had just gone back, looked at it, and thought, oh, wait, no, it was this. Okay. So are there any questions about the exit quiz? Okay. Yeah, I think this week will be a little bit easier now that you kind of know what to expect, but they will be that specific about the readings and about the videos. And most of the stuff I will go over in class, but every so often there might be a question that's about the reading that I didn't necessarily say anything specific about in class. So make sure you go back to the reading and think about what it is. All right, thank you so much. So are there any other questions about other assignments, the blogs, attendance, selecting your K-pop music video? I will say some of you, I think, are not understanding the blog deadline. So remember, on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. is when your original response is due, and then the comments are due by 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So remember that there's like 2 deadlines for it. Let me also show you. So is everyone figuring out what music video they're going to be writing about for the course? Hopefully you are. I know a few people have indicated to me that they have. Good. Yeah, it's totally up to you. So let me show you. This is a little bit weird. Oh, this is my email, but I don't care. So when you go to the submission on Canvas, it might be a little bit weird from whatever you've done, but it should look like this. This is student view. You're going to scroll all the way down. It'll say choose a submission type. You can either choose upload and upload a file with the information in it, or you can just do a text submission, which is like this, which is basically just like the way you do your blog response, and you can just type it in. The only thing I really would like is a link to the music video that you're going to use for it. So, and just make sure you tell me like the name of the group, the name of the song, and then a link to the music video. That's all I really need in order to be able to watch it and get an idea. All right. So does that make sense? That's how you upload this. I think there was a few people who were confused about that because it is kind of weird. I never did a text submission on Canvas before. I only ever did an upload. So, all right, good. So, all right. So now let's get to the, oh, sorry, I'm opening something. The in the news presentation from Allie, Owen, and Anna. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then Anna, you should be able to share now. Or Anna, sorry, Allie, you should be able to share now.
Do we have to show our video while we're doing this too?
No, you don't need to show your video, but you do obviously need to verbally present. So
Speak.
yeah.
Okay. Everyone see that?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. So we chose the relatively recent Blackpink article about Lisa that's kind of been going on around September. So but for those of you that don't know who Lisa is, I so graciously pointed her out. She became a popular headliner due to an issue in contract renewal with her record label, which is also YG Entertainment. And through most of the news, whenever you just Google her name, you'll find that she rejected a renewal contract, which is what we'll be discussing today. But yes. Next. So I chose to do Forbes, which is a popular, I just kind of want to say like artist kind of thing that they write for news articles. Sorry, I'm saying thing and a lot. Okay, so from Forbes, all four members of Blackpink had been under renewal talks with YG for months leading up to September, is what this article, started out with. And then they led into how Lisa refused the first round of proposals, which that had kind of been ongoing since I think it was like July or June. I remember personally myself seeing news articles about this. But then in September, there was a giant raise in popularity when rumors of a second rejection hit headlines. And this rumor kind of had a downward spiral with other topics, I guess. But there's a main rumor that Forbes talks about, and that's that Lisa's speculated to be leaving Blackpink, which is why it was such a popular topic. However, Forbes reports that Lisa had been previously offered around 40 million in the renewal contracts that she had rejected. And it's also reported from YG that the rumor of her leaving Blackpink has not been officially confirmed. I also have the logos for each company, or for Blackpink. It's down in the bottom corner. That's kind of like what their group is, and up top is YG's logo, just for those that are curious. So Forbes itself kind of operated as a rumor mill. They were analyzing the different rumors that surrounded Lisa. So they take it further by speculating that YG's stock price is due to the rejections and rumors. Apparently, 9% of YG shares fell as a result, and it marks the largest drop in share price for a single day for YG Entertainment. And then Forbes assumptions claim that with the success of Blackpink and the potential split, in case Lisa leaves and other members in case they leave and split the group up, YG still has a slim chance of replacing the Blackpink members. and successfully. And so how this relates to us is that week 2 is about self as a commodity, which makes the contract issues. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say week 2. That was last week. But it makes the contract issues a perfect match with a record label. YG is trying to essentially purchase 7 years of Lisa's talents, her image, her appearances, and performances, as well as her successes. And I say 7 years because it's kind of common knowledge that for artists or K-pop artists that they sign these contracts, and it's very popular time frame for these contracts. And so, as I've said before, YG valued Lisa's services. The commodity essentially is what I'm referring to as at $40 million. And lastly, if you were to look up this article, Forbes briefly describes Blackpink, their successes, the ongoing contract issues, rumors, and potential results of the worst outcome of these rumors being true.
Yeah. So if you look at the original article that Forbes is talking about, it basically says, Forbes summarizes it pretty well, but it basically says Blackpink are having issues with contract negotiations. Lisa has turned down some very big, high dollar offers to re-sign with the label. And there's some speculation about what is actually going on, what they're maybe could be thinking if they're leaving the label. Are they going to stay in the group? All this. You can go ahead and move on. And so it's really interesting because the original article that's published in Seoul Sports doesn't even have like a reputable source. They kind of just say according to industry insiders. And so it's really interesting from the perspective of the record label, right? Because yes, they're selling music and promoting you to go out and buy CDs and buy the album, but also they're kind of selling you the image of Blackpink and the image of these artists. And so an interesting like byproduct of that is that like even something like a rumor that they're not going to return to the label can tank the valuation of the company. I mean, 2 months ago, the YG was valued at like $5.5 million, and today they're valued at 3.5 million. Like that's a big deal, and it sort of, I think, comes with the territory of like selling the idea of someone rather than an actual product, right? And it's especially important with Lisa. Lisa is Thai, which is a big, big deal to YG. It gives her tremendous reach outside of Korea and Southeast Asia. And it is probably why they're willing to spend so much money on her in particular. Obviously, they want to keep the group together, right? That's a big deal, but it's no surprise that as the person in the group who extends the reach and kind of makes it profitable outside of Korea, that she would be offered such a high dollar deal. And so that's sort of ties in again with the idea of like commodity is self, right? What makes Lisa so valuable? Yes, it's her dancing skills and her performance abilities, but it's also just the fact that she's Thai, and that makes other Thai people like her a lot, right? Just this aspect of her ethnicity actually is what's valuable, maybe not so much as her other employable skills. And so this story is really interesting because Blackpink are sort of able to say, no, I'm not going to take this $40 million deal. They're sort of pushing back against what are classically very oppressive companies, right? There's really famous stories, like one of a member of the group, I think it's Super Junior, who had to sue his record label because his contract had like super inhumane details, right? He had like no sick leave, like 20+ hour work days. He couldn't be in a romantic relationship because it might tarnish his image, right? And that's for 7 years. So classically, there's been a lot of struggles within this industry of artists sort of fighting against their label and not having a lot of freedom. And so it's really interesting here that Blackpink are able to leverage their massive popularity back against their record label and reclaim some sense of individuality, of agency, in a culture and an industry where they haven't been able to do that. And so that makes this story particularly interesting. That, yeah, that's about what I got.
Okay, so so that contract story, I'm still kind of reading this article a little bit just to gain all the knowledge about it. But Lisa's future, she obviously could do a lot with this. She could be her own influencer with this record label, retired. She has so much money, she could really just do whatever. Sorry, I'm scrambling a little bit. Give me 1 second. Go to my slides. So that last article, oh, like this article features the rumors of Lisa's departure and like how, hold on. Oh, here we go. How it's breaking like the company stocks. The article lists out the plans for Lisa, that she's not contract bound, forbidden from engaging like in certain aspects of life, and like the ideas the prestige suggests. So she opens a club, or becomes a social media presence, return to Thailand, sign with a local record label, and that's basically just what this article is saying. And Lisa like enjoys with not being contract bound is her performance for Crazy Horse that's pictured in this slide. You can go ahead and move on, please. Um, since she has so much experience and talent, she's capable of a lot more, and other record labels are offering her contracts, which makes her a top commodity basically for the music industry, especially K-pop. Um, she just has a lot of offers like at her hands. But if she does choose to leave this industry, her name like alone will attract followers. She has so much popularity on her own that the support from her fan base and her like as an individual person herself, she's obviously going to, how do I word this? I don't know. She's gonna have a fan base either way, depending on what she decides to do. And then the commodity, like I said, commodity, her achievements and brand from Blackpink have set her future successes like in stone already. Like she has so much popularity and just such a big name in the industry. So that kind of makes sense.
Good. Thank you very much. I know we can't really clap, but if everyone wants to give the Zoom claps, that was a great. Thank you so much for going first. It was amazing that you do that. And I think this really set a good example of for the content of what to talk about for this. So are there any questions from students, or I'll ask my question? Nick?
I have a question. Oh, so I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yes, sorry. I'll ask Nick and then we can get to your question. Nick asked, what are the next steps for YG in trying to renew her, Lisa? What do you think? Do you have any ideas on this, Anna, Ali, or Owen?
I know in like public statements, YG has been very like giving non-committal answers and very like, oh, we're still working on it. With Lisa in particular, it's hard to say exactly what they're gonna do, but I know like for some of the other members who have maybe been having similar type things, they've been thinking of deals like they signed to another label but are still part of Blackpink, which is like still owned by YG. So they still kind of perform together, even though they're not all signed at the same label. There were other like I'm not super familiar with how it works, but there were other examples of like I think Super Junior they mentioned doing that, where they kind of like group together, maybe we're gonna leave, but still be in the group. It's hard to say exactly, and I don't think the label is going to be very open about what their plans are.
May I also add to that? YG itself, you know, like how every agency or record label puts out official notices, but they're not really detailed. The I think it was like the one and only one, or maybe one out of the few, but they had put out a official announcement that yes, these the renewal is due soon, and that there's no official confirmation, and that things have been undecided, but they don't tell you what's going from now what's going to happen. Does that make sense? I hope so.
Yes. Thank you. London, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask what uh what do you think is gonna happen with the because a lot of their brand deals, like with Celine or for example, are through YG. So do you think they will then the brands will then reapproach them and try and renegotiate independently, or yeah.
Um, so I can't remember who it was that left JYP and then joined J Park's entertainment company. I think it was Jessie. But she ended up of course her contract stuff ended with the company, but she ended up if they liked their spokesperson or their ambassador, they can always just start up a new contract with them with their new company or just as an individual. That's not record label based. I've seen it happen. The names for the people that this happens to has fled my mind. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And finally, let's have Haley's question be the last question here. Has the other members renewed their contracts? Is Lisa the only one that rejected?
Yeah, so is it I can't remember. One of them I know has re-signed. One of them is back with YG and renewed the contract. But the other three are in the same sort of boat. Lisa's is like the one that got like a bunch of media attention, but I know it's Jisoo, I think, has like a acting career and a couple years ago had like a starring role in a TV show. So that also is questionable and definitely factoring into whether or not she's going to resign. There's a lot of speculation if they're going to leave, if the group's going to disband and they're going to just go off and do separate things. But as of right now, only one of them has resigned. Yeah, the other three are still up in the air because I think their contracts like expired a month ago, and it's kind of in limbo right now.
Great. So this is a really good conversation about neoliberalism, particularly, right? Because you really see how Lisa herself starts to function as an object for this company, right? And how even her little action, which seems like it should be very personal, not to renew, can have such an effect, like taking the entire company's stock price down, right? Or their stock, well, yeah, their stock price goes down by 9%, right? And then their entire net worth goes down, right? So do you see how this identity between Lisa, the artist, and the company, YG, is really blurred here, right? And she's kind of an individual actant and she can make her own decisions, but at the same time, she's really tied to the financial or monetary success of that company. So it's a very weird way that she becomes this commodity for YG, not only that they produce, but they almost need her, right? They almost need to produce her in order for the company to survive, right? And so my question though would be is if you all three think that Lisa, this rumor itself was the reason for something like the YG stock prices and their net worth to go down, And I was kind of confused about the time frame. Is that within just 1 month? Because I think it said, I think you
It
said it
was
was
in
in
like 3
June.
days.
In
It was in
3 days,
3 days,
this
yeah.
happened. So then when
Mhm.
is the net worth decrease?
So the original article that I could find was published late September, like September 27th or something. And then other outlets started picking it up. And then from the beginning of October, I think it's like from the 29th to the 1st of October,
Mhm.
it drops by 9%. And then to
Okay.
today, it continued another 9%. And so it just continues to taper off.
So then do you think that this is the only reason that would be happening, or are there this is just one reason among a lot of other among a lot of other possible reasons?
I feel like it may be a little bit of like a little bit in like retaliation of 3 out of the 4 members not
Oh, okay.
acting, you know? And I know that Blackpink is very representative of YG right now with their popularity. So I feel like with just as big of a group as they have been, that there's probably loss. But I mean, they're also, I believe they were returning from tour as well. So perhaps like the profits from that had been paid off. So now when it comes to like stocks and shares, that's kind of probably being influenced too.
Interesting. Okay.
I think too,
Mhm.
because I know tours can be very expensive and a lot of times you can lose money on tours. So the actual finances of the company may be part of this, but I do think a pretty significant piece has to do with sort of the news, and then also that there's not really been a resolution, right? Like we don't know where the other 3 members are going. We don't know if they're coming back or not. And I think that kind of doubt also uh, doesn't lend a lot of confidence to the company. It doesn't make people want to keep investing in them.
Yeah, like if you can't keep your artists, then your investors definitely are not going to trust in you. Good. Thank you very much. This was great. So I just want to make some general comments that's not to the group, but just to everyone for like the future with this. So one thing is, we want to make sure we're in the 10, like less than 10 minutes or less. I mean, we've been talking for 20 minutes now, which is totally fine, but 10 minutes or less for the presentation. So what I would suggest is if you're in a group of 2, this is pretty easy. But if you're in one of the groups of 3, I would suggest splitting this. I would just not present each article individually, but just say these are the articles that we talked about. And then maybe 2 of you can split up the summary. One of you can talk about kind of the perspectives, like the kind of facts, and one of you can talk about the opinions. And then one person explain how this connects to the topic. I think the instructions maybe tell you something like each person introduces a different article, but I think I thought I changed that. So there's no harm done this week or anything. It was great, but just I think that'll help it not be as redundant as well for the presentation. So thank you all 3 so much. That was great. Good. All right. Let me move this over here. So let me share here. Oh, wait, no, I need to share my screen. All right, so the Kim sisters. So we were supposed to talk about them last week, but we didn't get a chance to. So you watched Sita about Seiji's video. We're gonna talk a little bit more about her later. She's one of the premier scholars of K-pop and Korean music history, particularly in the world. So the Kim sisters, some of you got confused about this. They were not famous during the Japanese colonial period. Their mother was a famous singer during the Japanese colonial period, so before 1945. And then they became famous because she was famous during the war and then just after the war. So they were on the US military circuit right? So that was one of the exit questions or exit quiz questions. So they were like teenagers basically when they were doing the military circuit. So they weren't even really, they were born, I don't know the specific dates they were born, but it was like the oldest one was born in the late 1930s and the earliest was in the 1940s. And the US military circuit starts in like the 1950 really. Well, I guess just thereafter, 1945, but what they were doing was really in the early 1950s, the Korean War. And then they got contracted by someone who was running the China Dolls Review. Has anyone ever heard of this? In Los Angeles in 1958. This was a big deal in the back in the day where these reviews in areas like Los Angeles, New York City, Las Vegas too. They were these night shows, these nightclub shows, and particularly they presented women to dance and sing and all the thing, right? So it was a really big deal for them to come over. This was one of the most popular ones, not only just in LA, but people knew about this in the 1950s all across the United States, what the China Dolls Review was. And of course, this one was primarily women who were either from Asia or were of Asian descent were in the China Dolls Review. There's a lot of scholarship on this show. And then in the 60s, they started making appearances on variety shows like the Ed Sullivan and Dean Martin show, which you should have seen. If you watched Charlie Brown, that was on the Ed Sullivan show. And then in Cedar Balseji's video, that was the Dean Martin show. And they had a #2 hit. They never hit #1. And I don't know what year this was because I've never been able to find it. But with this song, Kimchi Gakdugi, what did you think about this song? Many of you talked about it in your blogs. Do you remember it? Oh, no, it was a week ago now. What stood out to you about this song? Yeah, it's very fun and lighthearted. It has a little bit of a trot beat to it, but like with a more kind of like 1950s rock and roll kind of drum beat behind it. Yeah. What was it about? Kind of just about what it says, kimchi and gakdugi. Yeah, Korean culture focus. It was kind of about Korean stereotypes in a way, right? They were kind of using this Korean stereotype of kimchi and gakdugi. So gakdugi is a pickled radish. You probably never heard of that if you don't eat Korean food very often, but kimchi everyone knows. At that time, nobody really knew what this was in the US at least. White people in the US didn't know that. Yeah, and they did it. It depends on which one you listen to, but there's an English version, there's a Korean version, and there's an English Korean version as well. I think the version that got most popular was the full English version, but in the 1970s with their kind of their record with all of their hits on it, they did an English and Korean version of it. Good. So yeah, what about them is global, right? Global and local, localized, right? So they use English and Korean lyrics. They incorporate 1950s rock. They mostly did like American rock hits at the time. I know 1950s rock is not really what we think of as rock, but to them it was rock, right? And they had careers. This is important here. They had careers in the US and in Korea. They were really the first music group to do that. Nowadays it seems pretty common, right? But no one had really done that, had a global and local career. Nowadays, because of this, you see these kinds of headlines about them. This is how I kind of came to know about them. It was actually from PBS, not this one, but 60 years before BTS, the Kim sisters were America's original K-pop stars. What do you think? Do you think they can qualify as the first K-pop stars in the US? Or maybe yes or no? If no, how should we really consider them? Or what do you think? Probably, maybe. Yeah, I would say like Korean music stars. I think that's fine. Yeah, I agree. I think the context is really different. They don't, it's kind of it's a little bit presumptuous to call it K-pop, because K-pop, especially today, we're going to talk about what that means. Or no, next week we'll talk about what that means exactly more, because we're going to actually talk about what we call K-pop. It's all very different from this. Yeah, but they're definitely foundational, right? They definitely set up some roots for later companies and artists to build upon, right? This musical connection between the United States and Korea. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can totally have your own opinion, but I see this is the way that people are interpreting them in history now. And some people don't really like that, because they're like, well, it's not really K-pop, right? They're just kind of using it to make them more trendy, even though instead of appreciating them for what they are. Yeah, they have characteristics of their outfits. Yeah, a lot of you talked about this. They wear these are called cheap-hows. These are not a Korean, these are not a Korean outfit. These are actually a Shanghai style Chinese outfit, which is also not, it's based on tradition, but it's a modernized, like westernized version of like a Chinese silk robe for women. So they wear these, which these would have been familiar in the US because these were popular even among, of course, white women, right? To wear these cheapaos. And definitely among Chinese American women as well. So that's what they wore. All right, so let's move on. So we're gonna dig into this 1980s to 1990s, becoming K-pop. This is the South Korean musical industrial revolution. A lot of us seem to really like the music that came out of this time. I like it too. So what was interesting about the 1990s K-pop, or Korean pop? I'm just gonna call it Korean pop music, not K-pop exactly. So Shin Hyun-jun, who wrote the reading you were supposed to have read, and many of you did, I could tell. He's a professor at the Anglican University in Seoul, and he studies cultural economics. Is anyone in I know we have a few people in business economics. Cultural economics, that's actually part of what I did my bachelor's degree in. What do you think that means? Cultural economics is like the study of art, the arts basically, and these kinds of things that can't really be, you can try and put numbers to them, but they're really driven by taste and public interest, something that really can't be controlled so easily through money. So the arts, visual art, music, dance, those kinds of things are like part of the study of cultural economics. Theater, yeah, it's like the value system of arts. Exactly. Yeah, it's these kinds of things that are more appreciated for their artistic value rather than their actual need, their ability to fulfill a gap in the economy or a gap in the market. And he focuses on South Korean music industry, as we've seen. Oh, yes. Good. So what was interesting? Sorry, I think I asked two questions there. What was interesting about Korean pop music in the 90s? What stood out to you about it? Yes, the varying styles. There's so many different genres going on at the time, right? So electronic and trance kind of style music, R&B and hip hop, this is what will become huge. Yeah, NSYNC style pop ballads for sure. Melodrama, yeah. Yes, Itaewon. Itaewon is very important to the development of this culture, right? Yeah, absolutely. It was a subculture that became a mainstream culture. Hip hop, yes. Yes, this is where a lot of you are talking about. I don't see much dance. Last week, you're saying there's not much dance, synchronization. Well, dance is here. We have the dance, right? The entire genre is called new dance. So it's not just music about music, it's about dance. Individualism. Yes, there's this kind of culture of individualism at this time, right? Yeah, Itaewon was this very, it sounds like, I mean, it probably is romanticized a little bit, but it seems like this really cool place during the time to go and be you know, express yourself through music and dance and all the in the arts and everything. If you go to Itaewon today, there's still a lot of the nightclubs and whatnot, but it's not my favorite place. Every time I go there, I get something bad happens to the people that I'm with, such as somebody gets something stolen. Last year, if you remember, we just had the year. Itaewon is the area where the mass um fall happened, where all these people got crushed because crushed on top of each other. It's really a place that has gone down in the public eye in the past 2 decades. And it's partially because of the subcultures that appeared there. Yeah, it's the foreigner district. It's where there's a US military base in Yongsan is on the outskirts of it. So good. So I'm going to just go over this really quickly here. So he didn't really explain this, but in the 1980s, there was something in South Korea called the Minjung, or People's Movement. If you want to learn more about it, take my course, History of Art 363, which is Modern Korean Art and Culture, and we'll spend an entire week on this. But basically, it was the movement for democratization. Yeah, several of you have taken this course, or you already know about this, maybe from one of the courses in East Asian Languages and Cultures. But South Korea was not a democracy after the Korean War. It was a military dictatorship, and it was a military dictatorship until 1987, right before the 1990s. Even though it was military dictatorships backed by the United States. The United States supported the fact that they were military dictators. So in 1987, this movement brought about the first democratic elections for a head of state, so president. And so basically this liberal government led to an open door policy, which led to more globalization. So the open door policy is this idea that they're going to let foreign companies come into South Korea. Foreign companies were allowed into South Korea prior, but it was very difficult to do that. But this open door policy that they adopt under the liberalization of the government made it a lot easier for foreign companies to come in. And that led to globalization. So now South Korea has become more entangled in the global economy than it ever was before. It was already a part of it, definitely, but now it's even more so. And so at the same time, we have the rise of the new generation, which is what a lot of us talked about in our blogs, right? So these younger people who they have that air of individualism, which is brought on by the fact that their elders, who were part of the Minjung movement, won freedom, right? Won free elections, and among a bunch of other stuff for them, right? And so this had 3 effects on the music industry. And this is on pages 29 to 31. And some of you caught on to this, some of you didn't. I'll just tell you, you're probably going to see this show up again, a question about this show up again. So you have the foreign companies, the big 6, which they say, I don't know who all of them are, but they're like Sony Music. They come into Korea. They don't actually have very much success in Korea. Who does have success is the chaebol. The chaebol are these not foreign family companies that became conglomerates under the military dictatorship. And some of them are like Samsung is the big one, LG, Hyundai. These conglomerates start going into the recording industry, particularly just recording music, right? They are able to enter this more easily under the open door policy and with the just more free range that companies have now. Also, the rise of privatized TV and radio. So this is what leads to the television regime, which several of you mentioned as well. So before this, there was not really supposed to be, all of the TV and radio was supposed to be filtered through the government. And now you don't have that as much because of the lack of censorship, which we'll talk about later with Sateji. And then, which is, yes, here, abolishment and loosening of censorship laws. Sateji, we'll talk about that later, right? So we have the rise of the enterprise. What is an enterprise? So there's two roles in the music production process. What were the two roles that Sheen talked about? Two roles. Here, let me get my notes. So artist management is one. And then what was the other one? Record production. Yeah, management, distribution falls under record production, but yeah, management and distribution, or distribution slash production. I think I put record production and artist management. These are the two. And what falls under the two is kind of like distributing the record as part of its production and everything like that. I know that it gets kind of murky, but these are the two main processes. But what was different about the enterprise from earlier companies? What's different about the enterprise paradigm, the model of the enterprise? What did Sheen say? And this was integral to their success. Do you remember? So they didn't have to be registered as record companies because they didn't have to, right? Can I catch on to this? What role did the enterprise do? You remember? This is very significant. It did both. The enterprises did both of these roles. They produced the records and they managed the artists, right? So they not only, they usually, you would have one company that did record production and one company that was an artist management. But these enterprises that show up, SM Enterprise, Line Enterprise, Yo-Yo Enterprise, they do both. They do both of these things. So they become, okay, sorry about that. Let's see here. Can everyone hear me? Hi again. Sorry. That happens. All right. We're here. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. I'm still a little bit lagging. Okay. That's weird. My internet doesn't do this usually. All right, so where was I? Yeah, so they did both roles. Was there a question? Yeah, okay. So they did both roles. So that allowed them to be in this position where they were kind of in control of everything about the artists and the music, right? And so they were able to actually start going out and finding artists that they wanted to hire under their company, right? Which, if you know anything about, which we just talked about with Ali, Anna, and Owen's presentation, right, is like the paradigm of K-pop today, right? Like YG has to hire these idols and they sign contracts with them. So there's this idea of star management, right, is what they kind of become. And that's how we get idols like this. So we're going to listen to how much time do we have? We're going to listen to this a little bit. I wanted to listen to it. So let me send this in here. We'll just listen to like the first like minute and a half or so. I want you to be thinking about, as you're watching it, maybe you could take some notes or something, just jot something down here. How would you describe the music, the dance, and the look? These three aspects of what's going on in this music video. We'll do a minute and a half, yeah. All right, what do you think? What are some things? Let's start with the music. How would you describe the music? This is a pretty interesting song, actually, I think, even for the time. It kind of starts as like a soul ballad, and then it drops, right? It kind of drops into like a hip hop style song, right? It kind of starts with this ballad. Yeah, hip hop and R&B. Yeah, exactly. 90s hip hop pop ballad. Yeah, it's a mixture between the two, but it has the kind of two different genres going on. It's full of energy. Good. When it switches up. Very glossy and bright, and then full of energy. Good. Yeah, everyone, this is a great description here from Owen. Just about the music, not just like labeling the music, but like how the music feels to listen to, right? Because this really helps me understand like how, if I were to listen to this, what would be some emotions or like emotions I would go through listening to it, right? Yeah, exactly. What else? Anything else about the music? Ballad into hip hop. What about his voice? What do you think about his singing? How would you describe it? Oh yeah, Hyun Jin Young is definitely multi-touch. He has a large range. Yeah, he kind of does, right? Yeah, he does hit like a high note at some point. It sounds a little scratchy if you ask me in the performance, but he's trying. Yeah, he gets gritty. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. But definitely forward. Thinking. Yeah, good. What about the dance? What did you think about the dance? Very old school. Yeah, I think from 2023 when you watch it, I can't remember what it's called, but you know, when you pump your arms down and your leg up at the same time, I can't remember what the term is for that, but they're doing that over and over again. And that just, it seems very antiquated, you know, today in 2023. Yeah, they're B-boy and they're trying to B-boy. Yeah, they're trying to B-boy at least, B-boy-ish. Yeah. You don't see that very often anymore, but very footwork and arm oriented and sharp. That's a good way to describe it, London. Yeah. What else? Yeah, being a kid and just jumping around for sure. Yes, exactly. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, Hyun Jin Young was a underground dancer slash kind of singer slash DJ. And then Wawa, the two dancers who are highlighted, one of them's here in the shot. There's multiple dancers, but there's two, and they're wearing something. They're wearing, I know everyone's wearing white, but they're wearing like jeans, like baggy jeans, I think. And the others aren't. And they're Wawa, which is a dance group, right? Yeah, that's a lot like 2013 when the boy bands would the K-pop boy groups would show up. They'd be kind of like, it's like kind of dorky but cute, but cool at the same time. Dorky, cute, and cool all at the same time. Which brings us to the look. How do they look? What do you think? Good. Yes. Cross colors. Yeah, these cross colors are super popular, right? Yeah, like this hat, like the green, yellow, red. Um, what other thing have you seen maybe that is green, yellow, red in hip hop culture? Does anyone know? There's a specific place that is honored with these colors. Yeah, African. It's actually like the colors of when you give your ode to Africa, right? African American street style has that. If you see the picture of Africa and it's like red, yellow, and green, right? Um, that might be directly what they're taking from. I don't know. But it's definitely a good possibility that's where they saw it. But yeah, it's very much yes, very good point, Haley, here. This is very important. So see how Hyun Jin Young is in these vibrant, like multicolors, but Wawa, and the rest of the dancers are in very muted colors, in like white and like denim, right? Okay, cross colors. Oh yeah. Oh, and you said that. Yeah, I didn't know that's what it was called. Thank you. Yeah, cross colors. Which is yes, definitely black owned and marketed, exactly. In the US. Yeah. Well, let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, the hat seems kind of goofy from nowadays, but it was that kind of hat was popular, back then. It still is among many street cultures. Yeah, very baggy. Baggy's popular, right? So this is coming from this subculture in the nightclubs, which some of us ask questions about. So this one was the main one, Moon Nightclub. And so these are in Itaewon, which we talked about a little bit, which is a district in Seoul with the US military base next to it. So foreigners would frequent these clubs. A lot of these clubs developed as a way to entertain and make money off of the foreigners who were in the area. And particularly what was popular was music that was popular in the US at the same time. So in the 1980s, you can imagine the kind of music that would have been popular in these clubs. And these were primarily African American, but they call in the readings African American dance music. So there's artists like Michael Jackson, of course, super popular. Whitney Houston's music became popular. Janet Jackson. And then in the early 90s, you have like Straight Out of Compton, Ice Cube. These kinds of early hip hop artists become very popular. And then through the 90s, like Biggie Smalls and everyone continues to be popular. In Korean, they literally call this Black people's music. I don't like to say that too much in English, but that is you'll see it called this. It's called Hugin Umak. And they even say that in both the video and the in the reading, right? Korean people say, "Oh, we're indebted to Black people's music for this sound," right? So that's where it's coming from. And so you have all these different genres, right? Hip hop, rap, New Jack Swing, dance pop, all these things are coming up. And of course, they're popular among the new generation. So who is the new generation exactly? Because I don't think this is ever really explained. Some of us were saying teenagers, but who do you think, what age group do you think are going to these nightclubs? Do you think it's teenagers or somebody else? So trainees, trainees are not exactly, so trainees can be teenagers and even preteens and younger nowadays. Yeah, there you go. 19 to 25-year-olds. This is a great age range here. You got early 20s, 20 to 30-year-olds. Yeah, exactly, right? So they're in their young to mid 20s. I think their music, the music we'll talk about, was popular among teenagers, but it's specifically this demographic of young adults who have the freedoms now afforded to them. And so they're able to do a lot of things as adults that may have been more taboo earlier for people to do, right? Particularly Korean people. Yeah. And so it's in this subculture that's going on. These people these young adults, these nightclubs with foreign culture going on, particularly US American culture, and even more specifically African American culture, Black culture is going on in these nightclubs, where people like Isuman, who are these capitalists who want to turn this, they think it's going to be profitable in the mainstream. So they start scouting people like Hyun Jin Young at these clubs and Wawa, right? And they turn them into these mainstream pop culture icons. And that's also how we get Soteji and the Boys, or something similar. So let's talk about Soteji and the Boys. How were they able to appeal to this new generation? What were they doing that made them stand out? There's no right or wrong answer to this. There's a lot of different answers. A lot of you talked about this. Good. Yes. Okay. So individualism, speaking on social issues, this is huge. You were not allowed to talk about any social issues or bring up even your own personal opinion in a song in Korea until really Soteji, until Soteji. Even a lot of pop songs in the 1980s were just about loving Korea. Like that's just what the song was about. You had to express support for the nation, for the government. And Soteji did not want to do that, right? He was very critical and he found ways to get around that, right? Yes, exactly. So talking about social problems, yeah. Yeah, and just about having lyrics about expressing yourself, right? They just had songs that are about like, oh, you know, I know who I am, I know what I want to be, and that's what I'm going to do. Not even really about romance, right? Not even about liking women or anything like that, or and whatnot. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the main way. So musically, right? They didn't really do ballads. They did the new dance genre that was coming out of the nightclubs. Soteji was not a part of the nightclubs. And so the two dancers, Yang Hyun Suk was part of the nightclubs. I'm not sure about the other dancer, and his name is escaping me at the moment. I always forget people's names, but the other dancer, he was not. This one here, he was not part of it either. But they were dancers, right? And then Sateji was actually a rock. He was actually a rock singer prior to this, and then after the 1990s, he became a rock singer again. He is really in Korea. He's known primarily for rock, especially into the 2000s. It was very ocular centric, very visual. What was visual about them? What was so visual about them? A lot of you commented on this in your blogs. So their stage performance, yes, exactly. They wanted to look, yes, in their outfits, exactly. That's the two ways. They wanted to perform a very specific way, and they wanted to look a very specific way. And they did that, right? And they were the first to hire, so they had their dance going on and fashion, right? So they were the first to hire an actual fashion coordinator for their group to make sure that they were doing it, or that they were following certain trends. Yeah, and then like we talked about individualism, anti-establishment. And a lot of you commented on this, right? Their fans ended up leading really the fight against the pre-censorship law, 1996, that was abolished, right? So that's pretty cool to see that fans can actually have so much agency in a lot of ways. So did everyone listen to this? We don't really have time to listen to it. But if you watched it, if you didn't watch it, I'm sorry, but I was gonna give us time, but then I dropped. So yeah, so how would you describe the music for Non Arayo or I Know? How would you describe it? If you remember. If you listen to it and if you remember. Yeah, definitely rap. Um, Ballad, I don't think there's any. I mean, they do sing in it too, particularly in the bridge. I think they sing, right? Um, but yeah, definitely rap for sure. Yeah, and in the chorus. Yeah, there's some singing into it. So it's kind of a combination of rap and singing, right? Good. Yeah, this is a great way to just, yeah, Keely, thank you. This is great. It was very fun and catchy to listen to. I enjoyed the rap aspect of it. I've been listening to it on repeat since last night. Oh, good. I'm glad that you like a new song now. Yeah, I really like the song too, actually. Yeah, it's very fun. It's catchy. It's very catchy. For some reason, there's something about it. Even if you can't understand Korean, you can get this sense of just the beat of it in the melody and in the backing. There's something about it that's really catchy, right? Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different parts going on in this song. Yeah, instrumentally, there's a lot of different rhythms, everything, yeah. What about the dance? If you remember, they're doing a lot of dance in this. How would you describe the dance? If you remember. It's very Okay, yeah, modern. It's very synchronized. It's very hip hop like. It looks like they're taking stuff from hip hop. Yeah, it feels choreographed. Yeah, exactly. It feels very choreographed. Like they were very careful about what they were doing and thinking about how the dance matched the song. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And they all did the dance too. Even Soteji, he is rapping and singing and stuff, but he does some of the choreography as well in this. Not just the boys. Yeah, and then the look. How do they look? It's a little bit different than what we saw before. Yeah, they look very comfortable. Yeah. What do you think about Soteji's look? His general look about him? Yeah, they weren't dressed really flashy. Yeah, they're very laid back. Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they're not really trying too hard. You know what I mean? Like compared to Hyun Jin Young, it seems like they were really trying to make him look a certain way. Here, I don't know. I think they definitely consulted with someone in fashion who said, less is more in a lot of ways. Yeah. Doesn't look very stagey. Yeah, it doesn't look staged. Yeah, it looks effortless. Like every day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Good. So oh, I was about to say, what was I about to say? Last thing here. So yeah, Soteji, they really changed the game here. So some people were a little bit confused about this. So Soteji and the boys existed first, and then their enterprise formed, which is Yo-Yo Enterprise, and managed them. So the enterprise was formed specifically to manage and produce Soteji and the boys, and the kids. So some of us were a little bit confused about that issue. So because of that, they're pretty different than someone who scouted, right? And so that's why Soteji kind of had a lot of the freedom that he did, was because even though he was technically being managed, it was still like his artistic expression and like his art that was the center of everything, not really what the company or the entertainment enterprise wanted. So remained the mastermind behind it, right? So, and this is the kind of the last big thing. So what did you notice about if you notice, I should have put some I thought this was animated. So digitalization, some of us asked questions about this too. So digitalization is really key to this period because digital music allows you, if you have these digital equipment, it allows you to record things quickly and it allows you to play it back quickly as well. And then you can start layering things together really easily. So I grew up with a keyboard that did that, and also with an acoustic keyboard. But does anyone know what this is, particularly this? Well, it says it down here, but yeah, a synthesizer. What does a synthesizer do? What's another one of what's the thing about a synthesizer? Has anyone ever used one? Played around with one? Yeah, exactly, Nick. Yeah, they can be remixed. They have all these different sounds on them. They have a bunch of different digital sounds that are built into them, and you can change the sound and play the same keyboard, but make different sounds, right? Yes, exactly. And then you can blur the sounds together on a synthesizer. This is actually a really basic synthesizer keyboard, but this was actually used in Vogue by Madonna, if you know that song. I wasn't able to find any information on what synthesizers people like Soteji were using, but they were using these kind of synthesizers. They were mostly produced, they were actually produced in a lot of different countries. Even Korea had some, but they were produced in the late 90s, not during the time Soteji was making music. But this was mentioned in the reading here. If you're trying to perform this stuff on television like they are, why is it nice to have a recording instead of acoustics, an acoustic set? What do you think? Why might be the advantage to the television for that? Yeah, so it makes the performance much easier. Less can go wrong. Yeah, why can less go wrong? Because you're not having to set up sound for all these different instruments and parts and people, and right? You just have one recording, you play it, it's already mixed. There's a lot less room for error. Exactly. So that's really, this digitalization was really important in making this music more accessible, number one, and number two, easier to reproduce it over and over again, particularly on television. Yeah, good. So I have these two questions here, but I'll just go to the after class assignment. So we're going to end here. I'm sorry about all the technical difficulties today. So you just have two things that are due, remember, after class. You have your exit quiz is due by Friday, 11:59 p.m. Also, please submit your music video selection for your term paper. You can do it as a Word doc, PDF, or a text. Otherwise, I thank you all very much for your patience and your diligence in class today, and have a good rest of your week. You're free to go.